For me, family unification means the very simple and basic notion that families should live together because they form a social unit that gives each other support, social, emotional support, and that are really one of the fundamental bases of how our societies work. For me, it's important because we see so much desperation when you talk to families that have been separated. And I've met a lot of people who are, for example, in one particular EU member state, whereas the rest of their family is in another EU member state, and still it's not possible to bring them together. Or also the desperation that people face when they're in safety, but their family members are not. They're still in Syria, for example, or are then trying to get out, and there's no legal way to get them out. This is really touching, and anyone, I think, who has any family member or any friend even can relate to this huge emotional problems that gives to you. I think a rethinking needs to mean that we will have family unification, that we will have swift family unification, and that we will have a broader definition of what constitutes a family. Here inside the European Parliament, we have been fairly, in the majority, fairly progressive on family unification. There is a lot of members here also outside the Greens who are very concerned about children's rights, for example. So I am hopeful that inside the European Parliament we will get a good majority on any Commission proposal. But the problem lies in the member states, where capitals are often only concerned about keeping numbers of arrivals low, even though they are already very low. There's still this idea that we have to restrict arrivals and by whatever means. But I do think that as Parliament we can be a strong voice against that. Family unification really is a basic human right, and you cannot put a limit on human rights. Even if you have some family unification happening, but then you're saying, okay, limit reached, the others cannot be united. This is a breach of human rights, and it causes so much suffering for the individuals concerned. Human rights cannot be dependent on your economic abilities. This, from my point of view, is really outrageous. I mean, you cannot say, okay, if you're not rich, you're not voting, for example, and the same goes for the even more basic human rights of family unification. This is a very important statement, certainly, to say family unification should really happen. What we currently see in the EU is pointing the other way, and I'm not sure this is going to change much unless there's really also going to be an outcry. Many parties, and especially also parties in government, are using migration as a scenario or a threat, as a very negative narrative. I think it's being used as a smokescreen as well, to hide other topic or to try and win votes with that. For example, in Austria, I mean, the government is talking only about migration and trying to cover up for the fact that they do a lot of social cuts. Also, Italy is, I think, a good example for that, how the interior minister, that's basically him alone, not even the whole government, but how the interior minister is talking about nothing else than migration in a country that has a lot of other problems, and that then hides the fact that all the other problems are not being addressed. So migration is the scapegoat for everything, and this framing is a very good tool for, unfortunately, many parties. I think NGOs and initiatives are extremely important because they, first of all, have a membership that they can mobilize, and they have a lot of influence. I would say Caritas has especially much influence. It's a very well recognized NGO that has access to, you know, a broader spectrum in politics, and I think it would be very good if Caritas, as well as other NGOs in similar positions, use that access, use that influence in order to make sure that human rights are actually respected inside the European Union. And so I really think it's an absolutely crucial role that Caritas and others have here.